In examining the episode Till Death Do We Part from Tales from the Crypt, one encounters a strange and intoxicating mix of noir aesthetics, moral corruption, and fatalistic romance that reveals more about human desire than many feature-length thrillers ever managed to convey. The episode plays like a fever dream of smoky rooms, back alley deals, and hearts chained to impulses that lead only toward ruin. Watching it feels like stepping into a world where every whispered secret has claws and every kiss tastes faintly of poison. The story unfolds around Rex, a small-time crook with a talent for trouble, and Amanda, a beautiful dancer whose elegance conceals a hardened history. Their lives entwine in a way that seems predestined, even while one senses that destiny offers nothing gentle for these two. What makes this episode so compelling is the mood. The camera lingers on faces long enough for viewers to feel their doubts and delusions. Shadows swallow half the frame at times, signaling how much of these characters remains hidden not only from others but from themselves. I remember watching the episode for the first time in a dimly lit room, the glowing television screen casting an eerie pall on everything around me. There was a moment when Amanda arches back under the low, red lights of the nightclub, and Rex locks eyes with her as if the world has snapped into focus. It struck me that this encounter was framed not as hope, but as inevitable doom dressed in sequins. The opening scenes establish the atmosphere with a quiet confidence. The nightclub is full of murmured conversations, and the kind of music that suggests a life lived on the far edges of safety. The performers dance, the audience drinks, and Amanda floats across the stage with a delayed grace as though she moves slightly ahead of time itself. Rex watches her with the intensity of a man who has already made up his mind to fall, even though the ground beneath him is nothing but glass. What follows is a conversation that serves as both introduction and omen. Rex approaches Amanda backstage where the lighting is colder and harsher, reflecting the truth behind the glamour. Their dialogue is flirtatious but brittle. She acts as if she has met 100 men like him and expects nothing new. He senses her reservations but pushes forward, knowing instinctively that the people who resist him most are the ones who will change his life forever. When he asks her out, the brief pause she gives is enough to make one feel the undertow beginning to drag them both down. Later scenes reveal Amanda's entanglement with a dangerous figure named Bruno, whose world thrives on intimidation and silent alliances. The show never portrays him as a cartoon villain, but as a product of an environment where vulnerability becomes currency and strength is often measured by cruelty. Amanda's connection to Bruno is a chain she desperately tries to ignore. Rex, however, believes he can break it. The way their relationship escalates is almost dreamlike. One moment they are sharing cigarettes outside a nightclub, surrounded by neon reflections that distort their silhouettes. The next, they are sitting in a cheap motel room discussing a future neither fully understands. The intensity with which they cling to each other feels less like love and more like survival. At one point, the camera zooms in on Amanda's trembling hands as she confesses fragments of her past. I recall feeling that the shaking was not fear of Bruno but fear of hope, which can be far more terrifying to someone who has long lived without it. In Tales from the Crypt fashion, the episode never misses the opportunity to lace dark humor into even the most dramatic of moments. Rex's misguided confidence borders on comedic arrogance, while Amanda's resigned sarcasm adds texture to her tragic allure. This blend of tones keeps the narrative unpredictable. The tension rises when Bruno begins to suspect Amanda's betrayal. The show uses sound effectively here. The faint click of a lighter, the scrape of a chair on linoleum, the muffled hum of distant traffic all create a sense of impending collapse. When Bruno confronts Amanda, the room feels smaller, the walls closer, and the lighting stark enough to show every tear threatening to escape her eyes. Yet she remains stronger than she appears, a woman who has survived too much to cower easily. The climax arrives when Rex and Amanda attempt to escape Bruno's control. Their hurried plan unfolds across dim streets and foggy corners that give the setting a mythical sheen. I remember the sequence vividly because of how it mirrors classic noir chase scenes with modern pacing. They run not with confidence but with desperation, each glance behind them reminding viewers that danger breathes just outside the frame. The episode's final twist solidifies its place among memorable tales from the crypt entries. Rex and Amanda find themselves trapped by the consequences of their decisions, and the irony of their fate lands with a quiet but devastating thud. It delivers the message that love founded on fear and secrets cannot survive the weight of reality. The ending shocked me the first time I saw it, yet on subsequent viewings it felt inevitable, almost poetic in its cruelty. What stands out is how the episode forces viewers to reflect on their own impulses. How often do we convince ourselves that we can outrun the parts of our lives that imprison us? How often do we believe that a single person can save us from our personal darkness? The story lingers in the mind because it blends romance with punishment in a way that feels eerily familiar. We have all witnessed relationships built on unstable foundations, people drawn to one another for reasons they cannot articulate, bound by wounds they never healed. I recall a real-life experience in which a friend fell for someone whose charm hid a chaotic, spiraling life. Watching him repeat cycles he promised himself he had left behind reminded me of Rex's desperate belief that love alone could rewrite fate. Life, like the show, rarely allows such shortcuts. Thematically, the episode explores identity, self-deception, and the seductive pull of danger. Amanda embodies the struggle between reinvention and entrapment, while Rex symbolizes reckless hope. Bruno represents the inescapable consequences of past choices. Together, they form a tragic triangle that reflects the larger human battle between desire and responsibility. Visually, the episode excels through its contrast of warm romantic colors with cold confrontational lighting. Symbolically, every location mirrors the characters' internal states. The nightclub is performance, the motel is temporary sanctuary, Bruno's office is entrapment, and the dim alleyways are moral crossroads. Sound plays a similarly symbolic role, from the low hum of music to the sharp crack of distant arguments. Character interactions are the heart of the episode. Rex's attempts to appear fearless reveal his insecurity. Amanda's attempts to appear indifferent reveal her longing. Bruno's attempts to appear controlled reveal his paranoia. Each lie they tell themselves fractures their stability until nothing remains but the truth they worked so hard to avoid. One of the strongest scenes occurs when Amanda watches Rex sleep. Her expression flickers between affection and despair. It suggests that she already senses the doom approaching but chooses to savor the illusion for a moment longer. The camera holds her face long enough for viewers to recognize that she is choosing love even though she knows it cannot save her. On a personal note, this scene reminded me of how people cling to quiet moments when they know storms are coming. I once visited a friend who was preparing to leave a toxic relationship. She sat silently beside her partner, eyes full of sadness rather than anger, knowing that her love was not enough to overcome the chaos engulfing them. That image stayed with me and resurfaced when I watched Amanda's expression of fragile serenity. Till Death Do We Part succeeds because it embraces the ethos of Tales from the Crypt. It wraps moral lesson and human weakness inside a package of suspense, sensuality, and macabre wit. It captures the timeless notion that the choices we make while blinded by love can lead us into labyrinths from which we cannot escape. The episode's lasting power lies in its willingness to show not only the ugliness of human nature, but the beauty in our flawed attempts to find meaning within that ugliness. The characters reach for connection even as the shadows swallow them, and that is perhaps the most honest portrayal of humanity the show offers. This story remains one of the most memorable entries for me because it balances tension and emotion so effectively. When I revisit it now, I find new layers in its dialogue, new symbols in its visuals, and new resonance in its themes. It reminds me that love is rarely pure light. It often dances within the half-lit corners of our lives, where truth and illusion coexist. Till Death Do We Part offers no clean resolution, only a harsh but hauntingly beautiful portrait of two souls who wanted freedom yet ran headfirst into the fate they feared most. It stands as a stirring exploration of desire, desperation, and the tragic poetry of choices that cannot be undone.